Set in 1916, during World War I, you are a lone French soldier thrown into the darkened trenches of the Western Front during the Battle of Verdun. This is the premise of Catchweight Studios' first release, Conscript. It's a claustrophobic take on the classic survival horror genre that doesn't deal in the fantasy you might expect from titles like Resident Evil or Silent Hill. The horrors you experience in Conscript locks you into the real-world darkness of a war from over a century ago. There's no man-eating zombies coming up from the ground, no ghost babies with knives, or giant muscle men with rusted steel pyramids for a head, and certainly no dinosaurs busting through the glass windows trying to eat you. Now, this made me realize that there's a flaw in how I have selected which games I choose to play for these videos. Most of the times I'll take a very quick look at the art style and gameplay, and if I think it'll be fun, I'll just jump right into it. Now, I made the mistake of seeing the quote-unquote survival horror in the Steam description and recommendation from others that it's similar to Signalis, so I was expecting something that was a little bit more fantastical and a little bit more paranatural, I guess. Now, this is Catchweight Studios' first release, and a lot of the work here comes from just one developer named Jordan Moki, which is actually pretty impressive for a game of this depth and length. It has 6 chapters that take you through the war-torn trenches with a surprising amount of variety, even giving the bleak setting. You're getting a lot of game for your money here. Now, while Conscript does a fantastic job of giving you that nostalgic 90s PS1 era, like the aforementioned games like Silent Hill and Dino Crisis, it doesn't really deliver the fun and engaging gameplay that comes with those games. The influence is heavy, from the introductory splash screens to the sound effects, inventory management, and more. But where Conscript fails is the trudging and backtracking without any direction whatsoever. Sure, there was plenty of backtracking in games like Silent Hill and Dino Crisis, Resident Evil, but it doesn't feel so much like a chore in those games. Maybe it's just that this kind of game design has run its course. The sluggish movement through the muddy trenches gives, I guess, a realistic feel, but I don't feel like it benefits the overall gameplay here as you're running back and forth through the same areas trying to figure out what you missed because you just can't progress anywhere. This leads me to my next point, is that the pacing is absolutely jarring. You can go 20 to 30 minutes of just nothing, just walking around trying to find the next thing, trudging your way through mud and shit and whatever, and then suddenly you're swamped by German soldiers running at you with their shovels to smack the shit out of you. Now, maybe I just need to get good because I played on the second highest difficulty, but I found that the hot and cold to be very jarring throughout my gameplay. I actually had to stop streaming the gameplay footage capture because there was a significant amount of downtime and I didn't want people to be bored. Now, let's talk about combat. Honestly, it's rough. It's slow, clunky, and it can feel like a chore, especially with the tanky enemies that take way too many hits. You might think it's designed to encourage stealth, but even then, stealth isn't consistent. You'll often find yourself triggering enemies from off screen or getting caught in these frustrating loops of sprinting away, stopping to shoot, then running away again. You can't even move slowly while aiming. Surprisingly, the rats, yes, rats are actually one of the best parts of combat, even though early on, they were really kind of complained about through Steam reviews. They've been nerfed so they're easier to kill individually, but they can actually overwhelm you quickly if you're not careful, and they add a nice twist because they'll come out to feast on the bodies of the people that you've already killed. Now, you can throw grenades into rat holes or burn the bodies of the people that you've killed to keep them away, which does add some nice depth that the game never really explains, so you'll end up discovering it through trial and error. The puzzles, though, well, they're actually pretty solid. I wasn't a fan of the constant backtracking, but finding solutions to the various puzzles did feel rewarding and well integrated within the World War I setting. Before starting, you can customize your experience with different options for like unlimited saves, different difficulties, if you want to have checkpoints and other things, which does help tailor to the experience to your preference. But here's the thing. Conscript's design choices don't always work in its favor. It feels like it's trying to bring old school survival horror mechanics to a modern audience, but the combination doesn't quite land. There's a merchant character similar to the one in RE4, but the upgrades don't really feel effective since enemies are still bullet sponges, and you're left wondering why the upgrades are even there in the first place. It's frustrating because you can tell that there's a ton of passion in this game. The atmosphere, the details, the dedication to realism are impressive. The theme of the game, the senselessness of war, and the horror of seeing ordinary people turned into enemies is conveyed really well. The story is good. You feel the desperation and the scarcity of resources like you're barely scraping by. Conscript does a great job capturing the psychological toll of war. You'll come across soldiers losing their minds or just writhing in pain, and you'll occasionally find photos of family or friends that they've dropped. Sometimes they'll even ask you to go find them. These little details remind you that your enemies are just as human as you are, fighting in a war that maybe they don't even understand. Now, it must be said that after about 8 hours though, the tedious backtracking and pacing issues, I just struggled with them, and I couldn't bring myself to finish the game. So take my review with a grain of salt. If you're someone who loves survival horror and wants to try something different, something fresh, something new, Conscript has a lot to offer. It's not perfect, but it's unique, and it's widely accepted as a great game. So for fans of survival horror with a taste for historical realism, this one's worth a try for you, but trudging back and forth and the jarring pacing may turn enough people off. Thanks for watching, and make sure you like, subscribe, and let me know if there's any games that you'd like to have me review. I'm always taking suggestions like this one.